Hello, my name is Benjamin Hart. I'm an American attorney and the managing director of Integrity Legal here in Bangkok, Thailand. As the title of this video suggests, we're discussing tourism in Thailand, and I've really noticed, especially the past couple of weeks, throughout the media, and I'm going to point out one article. I'm not trying to call this particular platform out. It just was the most indicative of a lot of what I've seen from a lot of the different media out there discussing, the tourism side of things. But there seems to be this constant theme of discussing tourism and not really getting to the crux of the problem. And the crux of the problem is there's no tourists. And there's reasons for that, the government's response to COVID being the main one, but the restrictions with respect to travel and everything stemming from all of this. But long story short, I see the media out there just kind of, in many ways, just sort of, for lack of a better term, beating around the bush. They're not getting to the main issue with respect to what the tourism sector of Thailand has to overcome, and that is its lack of tourists. That's the issue. And a recent article from the Bangkok Post, it's bangkokpost.com, article is titled "Exposing the Cracks Within Tourism." And that's kind of how I decided to write this article, or to make this video. The crack, is it's no tourists. But quoting directly, the global pandemic has revealed weaknesses hidden within Thailand's tourism strategy for decades. First of all, I would just disagree with that out of hand. Thailand's strategy toward tourism for decades, frankly, has been a good one, which was basically let in tourists. What's changed in the last year, 14 months, is they're not letting in any tourists, and hence the reason the tourism sector is not doing well. Quoting further, deserted walking streets and shuttered hotels can be found everywhere today, with no sign of recovery in sight, as 80% to 90% of tourism-related businesses have closed because of the lack of foreign tourists. Well, yes, correct. If you're a tourism business and there are no tourists, you're not going to be in any kind of business. Quoting further, this market contributed up to 2/3 of the industry's total revenue before the pandemic. Yes, foreign tourists were a huge segment of the tourism sector here. Quoting further, while many countries are looking for sustainable methods to make the domestic market and economy stronger, the Thai tourism industry is still dreaming of the good old days of 40 million annual tourists. Well, why shouldn't they? Presumably this COVID thing is going to end, and we're going to get back to it. Do the folks at the Bangkok Post know something I don't, which is this is now the new normal, that Thailand just doesn't have tourism? Because I would like to know why. I understand that at least for the time being, there are problems that have to be overcome in order to get us back to, where we were. But there just seems to be this pervasive notion that this is like a forever thing now. We're all just going to be living in this new world where, for example, in Thailand's case, you just can't presume that there's ever going to be 40 million tourists again. Now, I totally understand. There's a big difference between thinking that's going to happen in like December. That doesn't seem to make a lot of sense based on the numbers. But who's to say that 2023 rolls around or 2024 rolls around and things start to look like they did back in 2019? Why should we presume that that's not the case? And also, what does sustainable mean? Again, they say, while many countries are looking for sustainable methods to make domestic market and economy stronger, the tourism industry is still dreaming of the good old days of 40 million annual tourists. Well, what's sustainable? What does that even mean? This article is really interesting. I read through it all, and there's a lot of, it's rather difficult to me to understand exactly what the point of the article is. What are you trying to say? There's no tourists. How do you make a tourism sector sustainable if there are no tourists? That's the crux of tourism, is having tourists. So again, it just seems to me like there's a lot going on here, and people, I do understand, people are not in the best of moods right now, and I think thinking on tourism, it's not as positive as it once was. But to me, the biggest solution to the tourism problem is getting some tourists into the country.